Our guest is in the studio. He is Senator Okiya Omtatah, the Senator for Busia County. He's here. Senator, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Senator from Busia, not Senator for Busia. I'm a Senator for Kenya. I'm a Senator from Busia. Senator of Kenya, elected by the people of Busia. There's no Senator for Busia.
Okay. It's not the county senator?
No, there's no Senator for Busia. I'm a Senator from Busia.
Okay.
Yeah, just like...
What does the speaker call you? Member for, Senator for?
Busia County.
Yes.
That's a mistake they make, but I'm not a Senator for Busia.
You're the Senator from Busia.
I did not take an oath with the word Busia in my oath.
But you came here on account of the
I was elected by Busia,
of the people from
the
Busia.
national government.
Yes.
I'm a Senator of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
Elected by the people of Busia.
Okay.
But I'm not a Senator for Busia.
You're the Senator from Busia.
From Busia, yes.
Sawa. Senator from Busia, Okiya Omtatah. Thank you very much for joining us. Our friend CT is away for this week.
Okay.
He has taken leave. But he left us with the proverbs for the week. And he told us this week the proverbs will be from Libya. There's still now this confusion. There are people who started saying that Libya has two capitals, Tripoli and Benghazi. No, Libya still has one capital, Tripoli, right?
We'll go with Tripoli.
We'll go with Tripoli. The proverb, and listen to it and then give us your interpretation. The naked man in the caravan has peace of mind. He whose covering belongs to others is uncovered. The naked man in the caravan has peace of mind. He who has covering that belongs to others is uncovered.
Yeah, it is true, because I think it refers to autonomy. Once you have autonomy, and you live and if you read some of these people who talk about revolutions, they have always come and classify them and say the weakest group for revolutionaries is the students. Just close the college and the revolution is over. The workers just deny them a salary and the revolution is over. But the peasant, if he buys into the revolution, you have no tools against them. That's when you have a strong army, when you have the peasants on your side. And the peasants are just naked people in the wagon. Yeah. Because they don't depend on anybody else. But if you have borrowed suits and what have you, if you are borrowing, you are dependent on others, then you are basically a slave.
If you're on somebody else's platform.
Yeah, basically a slave.
It's a very good one. Thank you very much. We saw you last week among the senators who were sitting in the sessions when the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport, Davis Churchill, appeared before the Senate.
Yes, indeed.
And the Senate had invited him to come and shed light on the KAA and its plans to engage with a private investor on matters, with the Kenya Airports Authority, with a private investor from India on matters of KAA. Now, many questions have emerged out of this. Let's start with the known, then we go to what came out from your sessions with the CS last week to what remains unknown. What is known is that for a number of years, the question of expansion and modernization of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, among other airports, has been in conversation in government and in the public for a number of years. What is also known is that even the KAA itself, in 2014, a program had been launched to expand KAA, the Greenfields project, which was later cancelled. What's also known is that this administration has talked a number of times about, we're seeing what the KAA looks like if we want to make ourselves the hub of Africa and be competitive in terms of attracting the number of visitors who come through KAA into the country or into the continent. We must have an airport that looks into the future and handling capacity. Now, that is what is clearly in the public domain. What has emerged in the public domain is that there was a privately initiated proposal that was handed over to the Kenya Airports Authority by Adani Group of India. And that the conversations had started taking place between the Kenya Airports Authority and Adani. Enter Cabinet Secretary Davis Churchill before Parliament. What did he tell you?
Whereas Honorable Churchill came and he either seemed not to know what was going on or he was economizing on truth. But basically, we are dealing with a case of very high fraud. And I'm happy the way you opened about what is known. Expansion of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is something that has been on the cards. It's a well-known. So that statement alone disqualifies it from being a privately initiated. I don't know if you get me. Privately initiated is something you come up, something novel.
Someone comes up with an idea that you haven't thought of.
Not thought of. This one is there. It's already done. And if you look at the documents the Honorable Minister brought, among them was the contract called Privately Initiated Proposal submitted to Kenya Airports Authority. If you look at this contract, this is a proposal, it has two very interesting things that anybody looking out for. The first thing is here.
At the
Strictly private and confidential.
Okay.
This is a proposal you are making to a public body, to the management. So if it is strictly private and confidential, who will look at it? So that restriction on this that statement is the first point that you are dealing with something that's not good, because the government is supposed to be transparent. KAA is an open body. They have to form a committee to look at it. You have highly, strictly private and confidential. So which individual is this that is being addressed in this privately, strict and confidential?
It's the receiving entity, KAA.
It can't receive a document like this. It's a public body.
Is it possible, Senator, that what they're trying to safeguard here is KAA sharing this with another private entity? For example, saying, you know what, these are our thoughts on this, and we'd like this to remain between us and you.
They could do a non-disclosure agreement.
Yes.
Non-disclosure agreements and private and confidential are two different things. Private to who? To a public body.
Yeah.
So by dint of it being called a private and confidential, strictly so, it is clear that you do not want this information to be shared with anybody else, save for the person it has been addressed to.
So who was it? Who was this man that was being addressed? Number two, if you look at the cover, there's the logo of KAA. I don't have a problem with the picture of the airport.
Okay.
But the logo of KAA claims ownership of the document.
Senator, we do proposals all the time.
No.
We put our logo and the logo of
No, I'm telling you that because when you look through this document, this document sounds like something that was done by KAA, and you've talked about the Greenfields projects and whatever.
Yeah.
This was a document that was being prepared for open tender. And I want to tell you that under the Act, under the PPA Act, there are several methods of tendering. You don't just have this one of private initiated. Under the PPA Act, you can have direct procurement. You can have privately initiated proposals like what they're claiming is here. You can have restricted bidding. You can have competitive bidding. So Section 38 to 39 provides for direct procurement under the PPA.
PPP Act.
The PPP Act, rather. Private initiated proposals are under 40 to 44. Restricted bidding is Section 45 of the Act. Then competitive bidding is Section 46 to 63 of the Act. So it's not that private capital can only come into a country through a PPP. As the minister was arguing the other day that the country does not have the money to do the airport, therefore we are going this route. The Act provides for several ways of somebody coming in. And given that this Greenfield is a project that had been thought of by the government, and it had even been attempted before and what have you, it cannot be privately initiated. There's nothing being initiated. This is an ongoing problem. Jomo Kenyatta is an ongoing concern, and there's nothing being privately initiated. So, at that point alone, you will see that you are dealing with something that is fraudulent. And when you go through this document that according to the Adani proposal, it sounds like a document that was prepared for for competitive bidding.
By who?
By the KAA. This document, if you look at the language...
Are you saying that the Adani proposal is that good?
I'm saying that the Adani proposal, because if you look at it, a PPA is supposed to be totally complete.
PPP.
The PPP is supposed to be a totally complete document with no additions and whatever. This one is like a tender document where somebody is supposed to fill in information. And if you go like when the minister came, he came with a document called the heads of terms.
Yes.
When you look at it, it's like the government is trying to improve on that document. The way you would handle a competitive tender and what have you. This document is not complete. And the act is very clear that the document must be complete when you propose. So going through this document, you find the fingerprint of KAA is all over. The way you prepare a document for a bid. Looks like this document was done. Instead of being sold in the market through a competitive bidding, somebody invited Adani or somebody made a deal with Adani to go and try and fill it in and bring it back. It does not qualify for a PPP. Doesn't have all the components. It does not at all.
You'll tell us what's missing. I want to go back into, so you've said the law, the Public-Private Procurement Act.
Yes.
Says there are different ways in which the government can engage with the private sector for engagement with
five
PPP.
ways.
5 ways. One is direct procurement.
Yes.
Where the government says we have need for a water dam that can hold 100 million cubic meters of water. And this will be in water. And we need a private investor to come and invest here, for public good. And then you go directly and procure from a private investor.
It doesn't work like that.
A public investor. This is direct procurement.
No, direct procurement is whereby you cannot get that product anywhere else.
Yes.
Assuming you want to build a house, you want to build that dam in an area. And I'm the one who has got land where the dam is to sit. Nobody else has got that land. Or it's a computer program with intellectual property that nobody else has, and you need it. That's when you do direct procurement. Because you cannot get it in other way.
This is the only source.
Yeah, the only source is that one.
That's one.
Yes.
Restricted bidding.
Yes.
How do you do the restricted bidding?
Restricted bidding usually is where you have got maybe specialized products.
Yep.
Like when they do this currency bids and whatever, where you have got security features and whatever.
Yeah, for printing of currency.
Yes, something broadly like that. So you restrict the staff for various reasons, which might be for confidentiality or security or whatever. So you invite people,
specific
people who are known in that area.
Specific entities. Okay.
Yes, then you can invite them
to bid.
Yes.
Yeah. Competitive bidding.
Competitive bidding is the open market. You throw a tender, you float a tender, and people
We want to expand JKIA, and we'd like anybody who has the capacity
and the interest
to come and tell us how they can help us modernize our JKIA.
Yes.
And you must meet this.
Yes.
Then there is a privately initiated proposal. Privately initiated proposal, what does it mean?
Privately initiated. The important thing is the two words, privately initiated.
Yes.
Privately initiated is like somebody comes to Kenya and looks around and says, there's an opportunity to build a railway between, or there's an opportunity in Nairobi to do a light railway for public transport.
Yeah.
Then he develops a proposal, brings it to the government and says, this is what I'm proposing to do. I can invest in this thing, I have the money, I've got all the capacity, and these are the benefits you'll get, and allow me to grow my capital maybe for this period of year, then I can operate and hand over. So if somebody initiates it, somebody looks at it and says, there's a problem here, it's a business opportunity, I want to do it, and I have the money.
Okay.
So here, the government has not gone out in any official way to invite anybody.
No, government has not gone out to invite anybody.
Okay. At the point when Adani was presenting its PIP, had the government gone out to anybody to invite anybody to come.
It was Jomo Kenyatta is a going concern. Greenfields is a proposal that has been on the market, has been out. In fact, some contracts had been done before at one time. So there was nothing being initiated. The government wants to expand this runway. It's looking for investors who can partner with it to expand.
Would there have been room in any of the 5 that we've talked about for this to fall in? Because what you're saying is that it falls outside of the scope of what any PPP would be by virtue of the words that you've seen.
Yes,
would there be a provision under which what
this particular one, Greenfields, cannot be privately initiated?
Okay,
it cannot be privately initiated. It's a government initiative. It has been out there all this time. The government has been trying to build. Even the Chinese came in at one time. There was a time they wanted to model it to the Hartsfield airport in Atlanta. So this has been a program that has been running. It's a program on the cards. And then there are also 2 things in this thing. If you look at the Adani thing, they are saying they are going to build,
operate,
and manage.
You
see, there's been no indication that the KAA staff or Kenya Support Authority is not able to manage. So that management component, where is it going? If the runway is what we need to build and whatever, why is the management also going out? You see, so I think the way this thing is configured is that it was configured to defeat the law, to defeat competitive bidding. And if they just floated the tender, I'm sure that very many people want to do this job, and they would have gotten it. And if you look at this document that Adani has submitted, it sounds like a document that was being prepared to call for request for interest or something like that. It's not a pure PPP document. And then the way now, after it has been received, the way it is being handled, the way the minister tried to explain himself, he gave us some 20 steps that he said they are going to...
It must be subjected to.
If you look at those steps, if you look at step, I have them here. If you look at those steps, you look at it from, I think, step 6 to around 11. They are basically steps that are followed in competitive bidding. So, the issues, and then one thing they have not done is, they have not done an evaluation. The first thing with a PPP, when you get a PPP according to the law, you have to do, the committee sits down, comes up with an evaluation criteria, they do the evaluation. That's when, after the evaluation, that's when they can go ahead.
Okay.
The minister told us they did a desktop evaluation.
Of
Adani. Desktop.
Of the entity or of the proposal?
Of the entity. They checked in terms of trying to start out with the, what do you call it? To verify it is a capacity to do what it was doing. They said I've done a desktop. Because there are pre-qualification. There are things that must be cleared before you look at the PPP.
Okay.
You need to know to establish that these fellows have got the money and all those kind of things. And there's requirements that for somebody to declare the benefits that will accrue to the Kenyan people and staff. So when you go through this document, and if you look at even the way the minister answered and the steps are giving us, it's like now the government of Kenya is trying to input into that PIP, and yet the law requires that the PIP must be complete for assessment.
Okay.
Now, but then you look at what the process, the government is saying that they're still trying to see if they can negotiate, they can do whatever. So, really, they're dealing like they're doing an open tender where they've identified the best bidder, and they would like now to settle on the terms that are beneficial. So, there's absolutely nothing in this thing that qualifies it for PPP, for PIP. So, it's not privately initiated. Yeah.
Are we saying that, and especially when the CS was in Parliament last week and asking or rather answering questions about this particular bid that you spoke of, it should be competitive. Were there other options in terms of folks that they could have considered to do this? Or were there other people, were there other organizations, other companies that they would have considered to do this work? Or did it seem as though it was designed for Adani to do it from the beginning?
Well, I don't think it was designed for Adani to do it from the beginning, but somewhere, because when you read this document the minister brought, as I've just said, they were preparing a document to call for interest and stuff like that. Then along the way, it was hijacked and given to Adani. And that's why it is, for me, falling outside the PPP protocol. The government should have used competitive bidding in this particular case, because there is nothing unique about building airports in terms of industry. So many companies do it. They should have done an expression, they should have floated the tender and let everybody compete for it, instead of doing these things under the table.
Senator, we take a break. When you come back, a couple of things that we'd like to hear from you. Number one, whether you asked the minister the steps that have been taken since 2014, when the first real initiative to expand JKIA through greenfields started. Has Kenya Airports Authority done anything else since then, in terms of formally saying we are floating an expression of interest on the matter of expansion of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, whether it's inviting any consultants to come and help them with just an analysis of what's needed, whether it's taking a cabinet memo to cabinet and saying this is what KAA is proposing through the Ministry of Roads and Transport, and the cabinet then saying, yes, we look at it and we see the program and the implementation is on point, and cabinet passing it. All those steps, whether there were those steps that have been taken, and at what point the PIP landed, and since the PIP landed at KAA's desk, what then happened? Because then it's clear, it would be important for us to know the procedure and the steps being taken here. Our guest this morning is the senator from Busia County, Okiya Omtatah, senator in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Keep it here. We'll be back shortly. We are discussing the expansion of JKIA, the Adani deal. Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport Davis Chirchir appeared before the Senate last week. Okiya Omtatah was among those who were interrogating the CS. So, Senator, before Adani came with its proposal, what had the Kenya Airports Authority done?
I think there has been a lot of things that have been going on about the airport, including the attempt that Parliament started under the Uhuru administration to have Kenya Airways take over the airport. That was started. So this is something that has been there on the cards, and that's why I'm telling you it is something that cannot be. It's not privately initiated. There's nothing being initiated. It's a public project that is looking for funding. What they are looking for is for funding. If you are looking for funding, you open a tender and do it competitively, and people come. So we're not against PIPs and what have you, but this is not a PIP.
Well, it is a PIP.
No, it's in the name it's being called a PIP. But if you look at the conditions inside, it's not neither a PIP. Yeah,
it's a PIP because it's not responding to any request for quotation or for proposal.
It's not a PIP. It's not initiating anything. He has money. Other people have got money to do a project that is open. Let them advertise.
Yes.
Let us get the best deal.
So those are the two things that I think that threw people into a lot of confusion. Number one is that why was it this one individual and his business that was then given the priority? And if we're looking at signs that perhaps the contract has actually been signed, another issue is the management for such a long period of time. If you're coming in to upgrade the system, what warrants you to then now stay for 30 years when it comes to management? Because obviously with management, a good amount of the money that is then made by the airport would go into the Adani Group, bottom line, commercial.
Yeah. I don't know. This document the minister brought is called... now, you see this one. This one is headed... The minister's document is headed confidential.
What document is it?
It is called Heads of Terms.
Heads of Terms.
Of concession agreement. Basically, which is an agreement contract. They are trying to conceal it. But... it's just headed confidential. It's not private and confidential. Okay. It's simply confidential.
Okay.
So which means non-disclosure.
Okay.
But if it is private and confidential, it means it's attached, assigned to an individual. It cannot be to a public body. And that's why I was raising that red flag.
Okay.
And when you look at it, like if you look at, there are so many things that are terrible here. If you look at 2.6, the concessionaire may submit its application for grant of lease of land for city-side development at the airport, and the same will be processed by the guarantor in accordance with the applicable laws. Now, when you go through this document, this particular thing is saying that these Adani fellows want to develop a city around there.
The airport. Yes.
So don't develop that infrastructure. But if you look at these terms and whatever, it is very vague. There's no full disclosure of how the land is going to be done. That we have got things that we have got contracts that have been running in KAA, between KAA and the third parties. There's nothing said about those contracts, how they're going to be handled and dealt with. And so this whole thing is something somebody thought would come up with and make some quick loot and they get away with it. Unfortunately, it came out. In June, I got a message from a young man who is based in France raising the red flag. This message went around. That's the guy who saved the situation because everything was being done underhand. The question of transparency, accountability was not there, public participation was not there. So when all those things when all those requirements are breached, in whose interest are they doing this thing?
And if you ask that question, then, Senator, then what would you say in terms of what could be done at this point? Because they're saying, okay, look, if we're saying that there's no need to do it in the manner in which it was done, then what is another option? Number two, open it up, because yes, the conversation has been had by the Kenya government for some time in terms of an upgrade for the airport. So what you say, open it so that you have more people bidding. What would be the way to undo what seems like a tightly, tied agreement at this point, whereby only one benefactor then is present? What would be the way to undo what this potential damage could do?
I think the best thing to do is, first of all, to abandon this whole thing, to stop it where it is. It's being done outside the law. The government cannot be exposed to any penalties because this is being done outside the law. And if you remember the duty-free shops of Ali Ibrahim and the way he lost his case when he sued the Kenyan state. Because in part of his affidavit, he had said that he had bribed Moi, the former President Moi, to be allowed to operate the shops. And so the tribunal in, I think, Washington said, now, if you did that, then you went against Kenyan law. And therefore, you cannot put anything on the sovereigns. In the same case here, you've got very clear laws. One of them is that when you come up with a policy position, there has to be public participation. It was not done. It has to be transparency and accountability. This thing is being hidden. Until somebody who happens to work in a firm where this contract was seen blew the whistle.
And if that didn't happen,
would have woken up
one day and found that it would have actually been called another kind of airport, and other things had already started to happen.
Yes.
Is it not?
It's like that.
It would have been changed. Senator, we would have been moved on to something else.
Please give me the document that had steps, not the heads of terms one. The one that the CS gave you with the steps that were to be taken before a formal signing of a contract. Because I just want to go through the steps. When a proposal is brought and what was then supposed to happen, there are several steps, and you're saying there are 20 steps. One, the contracting authority, now we're going to call it here KAA. KAA receives the privately initiated investment proposal. The private party pays a non-refundable review fee of 50,000 USD. KAA conducts initial review of the proposal against key parameters under the PPA Act, including affordability and value for money. The PPP Directorate sets up evaluation committee, including relevant government agencies. The technical committee of the PPP assesses the evaluation report. The committee approves the project to proceed to the detailed feasibility report stage. This is feasibility report stage or the development phase. The private party conducts detailed feasibility studies and sends their findings or report to the contracting authority. The contracting authority, that's KAA here, reviews the feasibility reports and sends them to the PPP committee. The committee reviews the feasibility report to determine the suitability. The contracting authority proceeds to negotiate with the private party on the proposed structure and content of the project agreement. Negotiations happen within 6 months. During the period, KAA, with support of the PPP Directorate, present a project and financial risk assessment report for approval. Once you have received the approval of the committee and the key aspects of the agreement are agreed on, the parties then proceed to conduct detailed due diligence and stakeholder engagement based on the actual structure. Due diligence will include legal, financial, technical. KAA presents the project agreement to the PPP committee for approval. The agreement is approved by the board of the contracting authority and the PPP committee and is sent to the AG for clearance. The concession agreement is forwarded to the cabinet by the CS in charge. The concession agreement is signed. A copy is sent to the AG for his record. The private party and the contracting authority engage with banks to get the project to where all the requirements of the bank provide for debt, and so on, until the private party hands over the project in good state back to the contracting authority after this. Now, I want to look at all that where in the initial stages, step 1 up to step 10, it's all about feasibility, and this is KAA conducting feasibility and seeing, and with a PPP committee looking whether this thing makes sense. Step 11 is where the Kenya Airports Authority then proceeds to negotiate with the private party on the proposed structure and content of the project agreement. And I guess this is where now the heads of terms comes in.
Yeah.
What is the heads of terms? Heads of terms is that document right before a contract, where you are all in agreement. This is how our contract shall look like.
Yes.
This shall be our obligation, and this shall be your obligation. We are in agreement that then gets into a contract. So we are already at the heads of terms stage. Have all these other things been done?
No, they have not. In fact, number one, one of the things that was supposed to be done is under Section 40, Clause 3J of the PPP Act, is that the privately initiated proposal under Section 1 shall contain the following information. It gives all that. One of the things it should contain is a justification why the project is not suitable for open competitive procurement. It's nowhere in that document.
Justification.
Yes. That this thing cannot be procured on the open market. There's no justification for that. So they skipped, and if you look at all that you have read, those steps, when you look at them, they have skipped from Section 40, Clause 1, Clause 2, Clause 3, and they are now somewhere around where they begin with the private party paid money into the contract place. That can only be done when the project has been approved. Has been approved and is proceeding. So they have left out the other part, like if you look at Section 4 of Clause 4 of Section 40 of the Act, they say the contracting authority shall submit a privately initiated proposal to the Directorate for assessment and approval. Then the Cabinet Secretary may, by notice in the Gazette, prescribe when submissions may be made under this section. You see?
All in a public manner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you are required to have been told before even they came to the heads. They should have subjected this thing to public participation. They never did that. So they are beginning with Clause 6, where you're talking about money being paid by the private organ, and then they're trying to proceed with that. Then on the due diligence, they have also did not even submit the criteria for due diligence, which is required to be made public. So this whole process of what they are doing is an attempt to steal a march on Kenyans, end up with a fait accompli. Then they'll tell you already have a contract, and to terminate this contract,
terminate this thing, it will cost us.
So let us just kama ile damu ya ulimi umejiuma ulimi
meza tu.
Meza tu.
Ulimi ni yako, damu ni yako.
So that's what they're trying to get us. And the argument they have that there's no money and therefore we need this thing and whatever takes us back to the story of Esau and Jacob. We are not going to sell our birthright for a bowl of soup, which is coming out. The other thing I've talked about in there
Steps.
You have read one where they're saying that they now begin looking for funding. In a PPP, you already must have funding.
Yep. That's why they brought you as a private entity in, because
that's why you are coming and saying, I've got money, I want to do this. Can you allow me to do it? So when you're talking about loans and whatever and other things, then again you lose it big. And so this thing is not a PIP. It's not a PIP. It's just an attempt to use to paint a hyena like a lamp and get in, and then the damage will be done.
The heads of terms, because that's a crucial stage.
Yeah.
What did the CS say about the heads of terms? Have they agreed on the heads of terms? Because the heads of terms actually now stipulate what the obligations when we get into an agreement. This is just a step before a formal contract is signed.
Yeah.
Have they signed the heads of terms?
Well, he said they have not signed, that are still in the process. But as you can see, the Adani signature is here.
Adani has already signed this part?
Yes, the signature is here. These are have signed on that document.
They've initialed
signed on each page.
They've initialed all pages.
They have initialed. So they're saying that there's no contract. But what it tells us that there's a contract is the Act itself. Because the Act has a requirement, and I asked the minister that question and he didn't answer. They say, on execution of a project agreement, the project contracting authority and the successful bidder shall establish a project company in accordance with the Companies Act 2015. Now, this having been done, they cannot try to fool us by saying that they have not signed.
Yeah, because why would you go ahead and open up a company, the subsidiary that they speak about? Yes. Why would you go and establish a subsidiary whose role then is essentially to conduct the business if you've not been given the business?
And this is very, very clear, Section 68 of the Act. It's very clear that the company is formed after there's been a deal, an agreement sort of. So, for me, there's a lot of concealment. And you know, as I do that, concealment has just one weapon that makes it succeed. I mean, fraud only thrives on where there's concealment. Where there's transparency, you cannot have fraud. So this is a massive attempt to conceal this project, and it's totally against the law, and I think maybe ultimately the answer might lie with the judiciary. Yeah.
The parliamentary probe, the probe in the Senate.
Yeah.
It's being spearheaded by the Departmental Committee on Transport.
Yes.
So apart from the CS for roads, who else is this Transport Committee speaking to?
They wanted to call the director of the PPA section next. But I think we're going to demand that a few more people come. You have got the minister for finance.
Yeah.
Both the current and the previous holder will need to be summoned. You have got the board
of
KAA. We need to be summoned. And for them, they are saving graces that they seem to have rejected this thing. Because when this document the minister brought, the very last document was the minutes by the board. And they are saying that let me just look for the place. There's a place they are saying that it was observed that the project has attracted interest from different quarters in government, making it difficult to advance a common position as the government. So you see, there are interests fighting within government over this project. The board sought clarification as to whether KAA management had an internal committee with KAA's positions on all aspects of the project, or it was reported that the negotiations were being undertaken by KAA represented by general managers responsible for procurement, finance, human resources, and whatever. So the committee seems to have raised questions. And if you look at their minutes, they are not approving of this project. It's like it's being done away from the board, which is wrong. It's being run by interest in the government, the ministry, which is wrong. So we are also going to demand that the board appears before the committee to explain to us. We would also want to have somebody like the former minister, for the minister who was in charge
when this started.
Mr. Murkomen, to appear before the committee, and we grill him. So there are very many things that we need to do to get out the information that is required to understand this thing.
Are you a member of the committee?
No, I'm not a member of the committee.
Okay.
I just got interested. This is Senator Sifuna, Senator Lekina, Senator Chererke, myself, and the mover of the motion, Senator Nyonka, are not members of the committee.
Okay.
But because the issues of national importance, we decided to intervene and help the committee push this document to the logical conclusion. We want to avoid a situation like what happened when Honorable Linturi on the fertilizer saga was cleared, and there were no consequences. Who else was then to be followed? So that's why we have come in and tried to reinforce the strength of the committee to say that in this particular case, no stone remains unturned, and we want all those turned stones, we want to look under them and tell the public what we see. Sometimes they turn the stones, they look under, they don't tell you what they have seen.
You see.
But in this case, we want to tell you what we have seen. And we are determined to see that this thing does not go anywhere, because it will be auctioning a section of this country and a critical infrastructure that has not been thought through. Like the question that was asked, the military uses the
airport.
The airport and the what you call it, the radar system.
The radar.
Yeah. They don't have what happens when it falls in private hands.
And will it be compromised?
Yeah, will it compromise the security of the country? The other question was, given the track record of Adani, even as we were sitting, I think just recently, there was an issue in Switzerland with them. How did they even pass the initial bar of integrity? How are they? So basically, there's total non-compliance with the law, and it's also saving grace, because we need to move and block it. Otherwise, we are going to get ourselves in deep trouble, whereby this contract will be sealed in circumstances where the public interest has not been addressed.
Let me ask, Senator, procedurally, has the fact that the Senate or even the National Assembly have commenced a probe into this, does it stop KAA from continuing with conversations with Adani?
No, it does not stop.
So
it's
if the probe,
until an order is issued.
So if this probe continues, and we've seen probes in Parliament going on for 6 months, 7 months, and within that time a deal is signed, is there any recourse?
Well, the only recourse would be that maybe you tell them that now that you have signed this thing, you carry the airport to India and operate it from India. Not from where it is. Yeah. There's that option where the people themselves now will come up and say, okay, we shall take up direct democracy and what watasalamiwa.
Can Parliament stop this deal?
Yeah.
Yes, Parliament can stop it. It has the power to stop it as an oversight organ, because the airport was built using taxpayers' money.
This is true.
And the Parliament is a custodian of the public interest. Parliament has the capacity to stop it where it is. After it is contracted, Parliament lacks the tools to stop it. If there's a contract, not only the courts can do it.
Well, if we see the establishment of subsidiary, also we know that there's a fee, nominal or otherwise, that has already been paid. What happens in that instance now?
Now, that's what I'm saying, that it may be the best thing that will happen with Parliament is to be able to bring out the documentation. And then, with that documentation, we can have an audit through the courts. And that's when we'll get, there's the courts which have got the orders to quash those contracts if they are not anchored on the law.
Okay.
And I think from what is coming out, I don't see why any competent court would allow this thing to go through.
Senator, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's see how this one plays out. When the next person comes in, we'll invite you again and again so we can get to understand what's being unearthed in these probes. Senator from Busia County, Okiya Omtatah, has been our guest. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.